容很多知识需要我们去了解的。
But today I'm going to be focusing on how to tell if you may have an imbalance of some kind.
但今天呢，我们重点是针对在如何去判断你是否可能出现了一些骨盆底肌失衡的情况。
Now, in my full teacher training, I spend several hours on this topic because there's so much to say.
在我的完整的工作坊之上呢，我是会有几个小时的时间去讲解这个话题的，因为要讲解的内容是非常非常多的。
But I wanted to give you some practical information that you can take with you today and really get something out of it.
但是呢，我希望今天能够给大家一些非常实用的信息与知识，能够让大家呢去在今天的课程之中有所收获。
So to begin, let's just briefly look at the anatomy of the female pelvic floor.
那我们课程伊始，让我们来先看一下女性骨盆底肌的解剖结构。
I'm going to talk a little bit about the muscles and the anatomy and how it works.
我简单的讲解一下我们骨盆底肌的解剖结构，一些肌肉，以及这些肌肉是如何启动运行的。
So first, let's look at a picture of the female pelvic floor.
首先，我们来看一下女性骨盆底肌的图片。
And then I'm also going to be showing you this model so you can actually see what you're looking at when you see the pictures.
而且呢，我也展示一下我们这个模型，这样呢，当我们再去看图片的时候，你就知道我们到底在看的是哪个部分。
So this is a female pelvis.
这是我们女性的骨盆。
And if you notice, there's different parts of the pelvis I want to point out.
那我们来关注一下，老师呢要给大家展示骨盆的不同部位。
So here we have the
这里是我们的耻骨。
And if you look down here, we have your two sit bones here and here.
下面呢，这是我们两个坐骨。
Okay. And then back here, we have the tailbone or the coccyx.
后面呢是我们的尾骨。
And so you'll notice that we have muscles of the pelvic floor that run from one ischial tuberosity or one sit bone to the other one.
那你会看到我们在两侧坐骨之间，从一侧坐骨到另外一侧坐骨之间是有我们的骨盆底肌肌肉的，从一侧延伸到另外一侧。
We also have muscles that run from the pubic bone all the way down to the tailbone.
同样，我们有肌肉呢，一直从耻骨到尾骨。
And so we have these muscles that you can see on the outside here that make kind of a T shape.
那你会看到我们外层的，你可以看到这些肌肉呢，看起来像这个 T 型的肌肉。
And then you see that there's muscles underneath those.
你也会看到，在这个结构的下方还是有其他肌肉组织的。
This is because we have several layers of the female pelvic floor.
那这是因为呢，在女性的骨盆底肌之中，我们是有不同的层次。
We have the superficial layers, which are the first two layers, and then we have a deep layer.
我们有浅层肌肉，也就是我们骨盆底肌的外两层。之后呢，我们还有骨盆底肌的深层肌肉。
And the deep layer is actually what holds up your organs.
是我们的深层肌肉在实质上对器官进行支撑与承托的。
So let's take a look at the muscles of the superficial layer first.
我们先来看一下我们骨盆底肌的浅层肌肉。
If you can see here, we've got the two ischial tuberosities here and here.
那我们看老师的鼠标这个位置啊，那这里呢是我们的坐骨以及另外一侧的坐骨。
We have the pubic bone up here.
上面是耻骨。
And we have the tailbone back here.
啊，后面是尾。
And you can see these muscles kind of run in a T shape across and up and down.
然后你会看到呢，我们肌肉好像是一个 T 型的啊，是横穿我们的骨盆结构，然后从上到下。
There's muscles that go around all of the openings of the vagina and the urethra.
你会看到围绕着我们的3个开口，我们的尿道以及阴道这个开口呢，也是有肌肉环绕这些开口的。
And then muscles here that go around the anus.
然后你会看到下面呢，也有肌肉去环绕着我们的肛门。
Right. So now let's look at the muscles that we are really going to be focusing on today, which are the muscles of the deep muscles of the pelvic floor.
那现在我们来看一下，今天我们要去非常着重去专注的肌肉，也就是我们骨盆底肌的深层肌肉。
So if we look from the inside, as though we're looking down into the pelvic floor, you can see that there are muscles that surround all of the openings.
那现在呢，我们从我们骨盆内侧看，想象我们是从上到下去俯视我们的骨盆底肌，那你会看到在围绕着我们这个3个开口上是有很多肌肉的。
These muscles collectively are called the levator muscles, which means lifting muscles.
那这些肌肉呢，去整合起来、综合起来，叫做我们的提肛肌，或者说是肛提肌，就说是提上提的意思。
And they hold up the organs, the bladder, the uterus, and the rectum.
然后这些肌肉呢，是去承托着我们的器官、我们的膀胱、子宫以及直肠。
So the ones that you really need to be looking at are the muscles, this muscle here that runs all the way from the tailbone around the 3 openings and all the way up to the pubic bone.
那我们需要去着重去关注的肌肉是从尾骨一直向上，按老师的鼠标向上，一直向上到我们耻骨这个肌肉啊，围绕着我们3个开口的。
This is the pubococcygeus.
这是我pubococcygeus. 这是我们的耻尾肌，耻骨尾骨肌就是耻尾肌。
And right to the inside of that, we have the puborectalis.
然后这个耻尾肌内侧呢，紧挨着它的这个是耻骨直肠肌。
And these are the muscles that you really feel contracting when you do a pelvic floor exercise.
那么这个耻骨直肠肌呢，是当我们在进行骨盆底肌练习的时候，你非常深入的感受到再去收缩的肌肉。
You can see there's a big area right here where there's not a lot of muscles, and this is the area where people get really weak.
那你会看到这里呢，很大的一片区域啊，这个老师画圈的这个位置是没有很多肌肉的。那这个区域也是很多个体、很多群体啊，它会出现薄弱的一个区域。
Because over time, with gravity, those organs get really heavy, and they if those muscles are not toned, the organs will start to drop down.
那这是因为呢，随着时间，随着我们的地心引力，以及我们的器官的这个重量啊，那如果说它周围这些肌肉它不够平衡的话，那可能会随着时间，它就会出现器官开始脱垂或者是向下降的情况。
And when that happens, then you start to have things like that we call that prolapse.
出现这个情况之后，我们就会出现我们所说的器官脱垂这个情况。
Okay. And that is what we're trying to avoid.
这一点呢，是我们尝试再去避免的。
So there are a lot of misconceptions and about women and the pelvic floor.
那关于女性以及骨盆底肌这个话题呢，其实是有很多这种伪概念，或者是说一些错误的概念。
And women suffer a lot, especially as they get older, because of pelvic floor problems that are preventable.
那女性呢，其实可能会，尤其是在我们女性晚年的时候，会去被这种骨盆底肌的问题呢所深度的困扰。但是这些困扰我们的骨盆底肌问题呢，它是反是可以被预防的，可以预防这些问题出现的。
So by the time women are about 50 years old, many women have pelvic floor issues.
那当我们女性到了50岁左右的时候，很多女性呢都会出现一些骨盆底肌的问题。
And they have pelvic floor issues even if they've never had a baby.
甚至完全没有生产过的女性，她也可能会出现骨盆底肌的问题。
And sometimes people who have cesareans will still get pelvic floor issues, even though they never had a baby vaginally.
那即使有一些没有经过这种阴道顺产的女性啊，她剖宫产的这样的女性，她也可能会出现一些骨盆底肌的问题。
A lot of people think, oh, I'm just going to have a cesarean because then I don't have to worry about pelvic floor issues.
那很多人可能会说呢，啊，我只是去剖宫产，那我就要去做剖宫产，这样的话我就不会出现骨盆底肌问题了。
But the truth is that just being pregnant and carrying around a heavy baby for 9 months will contribute to pelvic floor issues many times.
但这个真相是，怀孕本身啊，我们在10个月这个10月怀胎，在这么长时间里面去承托着这个宝宝，它已经对骨盆底肌呢造成一些影响了。
And sometimes actually having a vaginal birth, those muscles get stretched out and then they're able to come back. And that sometimes helps people with some of their pelvic floor issues.
Sorry, could you say that sentence again?
Yes. Sometimes having a vaginal birth can actually help with people's pelvic floor issues.
那有的时候呢，其实反而经过阴道顺产这些女性，那阴道顺产本身，它可能帮助女性去缓解一些骨盆底肌的问题。
Like, for example, sometimes people have tight pelvic floor and they get bad menstrual cramps.
那比如说，有的时候呢，女性她的骨盆底肌非常的僵紧，那她这样的女性可能会出现一些痛经非常严重的情况。
And sometimes they notice that after they have a baby, those menstrual cramps are not as bad because they've stretched the muscles out.
有的情况下，这样的痛经女性啊，她经过阴道顺产之后呢，会发觉这个痛经的情况可能比之前呢有所缓解，这是因为在阴道顺产的过程之中呢，它是大幅度的去拉伸了它这个骨盆底肌。
So many women believe that they need to have a really tight pelvic floor so that they can not have their organs drop down.
很多女性会坚信说，我们需要去练就这种非常非常强壮的这种非常非常紧的这种骨盆底肌啊，就是很紧，这样呢能够预防我们骨盆底这个盆腔器官出现一些脱垂的情况。
And they worry about having a vaginal birth that those muscles are going to get too stretched out.
而且呢，也会很担心，如果说经过阴道顺产的话，这些骨盆底肌的肌肉呢会被过度的拉伸。
So a lot of times people will do a lot of pelvic floor exercises, really strong exercises to try to get their pelvic floor tight.
所以说，很多情况下，很多女性会去做很多很多这种让骨盆底肌变得更紧的练习，去预防骨盆底肌出现过于松弛的情况。
But sometimes doing a lot of pelvic floors actually makes your pelvic floor worse.
但有的时候去过度的，或者是说你去过分的练习骨盆底肌呢，反而可能会加重你骨盆底肌的一些情况。
Because the truth is that we don't want a tight pelvic floor.
因为你要知道，真相是我们要去避免出现过于僵紧的骨盆底肌。
Because when a muscle is really tight, it's not an effective muscle.
因为你要知道呢， 当我们骨盆底肌非常僵紧的时候，这样的肌肉它反而不是非常有效能的肌肉。
If a muscle is in a constant state of contraction, it actually becomes weak.
如果一组肌肉它始终的处在一个收缩的状态，那这样的肌肉它反而会成为一个薄弱的肌肉。
And when a really tight muscle becomes weak, it ends up just giving out, and then you can have a lot more problems.
那这种僵紧的肌肉最终变成薄弱肌肉的时候，它最终呢就会彻底放弃，那反而你会出现更多的问题。
What we want in our pelvic floor is we want the muscles to be strong.
我们希望的是让骨盆底肌的肌肉处在一个很强壮的状态。
So what's the difference between strong and tight?
那强壮与僵紧之间的区别是什么呢？
A tight muscle is always in a semi-state of contraction.
僵紧的肌肉，它指的是肌肉总是始终处在一个半收缩的状态之上。
A strong muscle, on the other hand, has the ability to lengthen all the way and contract, making it much stronger.
而我们强壮的肌肉呢，它是有能力去完全的拉伸，并且有能力去完全的收缩，这种能力才使我们的肌肉呢是更为强壮的。
So what we want is for the muscle to have the ability to lengthen all the way and contract all the way.
所以说，我们需要的呢是能够使肌肉完全的拉长，并且能够完全的收缩回来。
But a lot of times when people just do a lot of tightening of the pelvic floor, they're making a tight muscle and not a strong muscle.
而很多情况下，当我们在进行过多骨盆底肌练习的时候呢，我们会去创造的或者造就的是比较僵紧的或者非常僵紧的骨盆底肌，而不是强壮的骨盆底肌。
So just like in the rest of yoga, what we want is balance.
所以说，就像我们其他的瑜伽理念是一样的，我们所寻求的、所需要的呢是平衡。
But sometimes we don't know if we have a strong muscle or a tight muscle or a loose muscle.
但有的时候我们并不了解我们的肌肉是强壮的、僵紧的还是松弛的。
And that's what I'm going to talk about today. Some ways that we can figure out if we have a balanced pelvic floor or not.
那这个就是我们今天呢要去讲解的内容，如何去判断我们的骨盆底肌是否处在一个平衡的状态之上。
Now, as a yoga teacher, I don't do any internal examinations, and neither should any other yoga teacher.
那作为一名瑜伽老师呢，我不去做任何的内检啊，这种我觉得其他的任何瑜伽老师也不应该去从事这种内检的行为。
And that's really the only way you can assess exactly what kinds of problems a pelvic floor has.
而内检呢，它是唯一的一种方式，我们可以说非常精准的去检测或者是评估我们骨盆底肌到底处在一个什么样的状态之上，就是内检是唯一一个精准的方式。
But there are some symptoms that can tell us that there is probably a pelvic floor problem and that we need to find out what that is.
但是呢，有一些征兆能够去告知我们，我们可能会出现了一些骨盆底肌的问题。我们如何去找到这些问题所在？
So let's talk about some symptoms that there could be a pelvic floor problem.
那我们现在来讲解一下，可能指示着你有一些骨盆底肌问题的征兆或者是病症。
Now, these symptoms could mean that the pelvic floor is too loose or too tight or a combination of both.
那这些信号呢，它可能意味着我们骨盆底肌过于僵紧，或者过于松弛，或者是部分僵紧、部分松弛两个症状的结合。
The first symptom that we look for, which is really important, is pain.
我们首先要寻求的一个症状，这也是非常重要的一个症状，就是疼痛。
Any kind of pain means there usually is a pelvic floor issue.
任何类型的疼痛，它通常呢都意味着它可能出现了骨盆底肌的问题。
So if someone has a pelvic floor issue, they could have pain in many different places.
那有人，比如说有女性出现了骨盆底肌问题了，那么她这个疼痛呢可能会显示在任何的部位。
So let's look again at the anatomy.
我们来再次的去看一下我们的解剖结构。
You can see that the pelvic floor connects all over the pelvis to many different places.
那你会看到呢，我们的骨盆底肌在很多不同的部位之上是附着在我们的骨盆上的。
You can see back here is the sacrum.
可以看到后面这个位置啊，是我们的骶骨
and the tailbone.
与尾骨。
And the muscles are attached to that area.
你会看到我们的肌肉呢是附着在这个区域之上的。
They're also attached at the sides of the pelvis and the front.
你也会看到与前侧以及两侧也是有肌肉附着的。
And if you look at my model over here,
那我们看一下这里的这个模型。
You can kind of see that anywhere in the pelvic floor, the muscles are attached to the bony structures of the pelvis. Everywhere the pelvic floor is attached to the bony structures of the pelvis.
那你看我这个模型啊，你会看到呢，我们骨盆底肌是有附着在我们骨盆任何这个骨性结构之上，就是我们骨盆的骨性结构呢，它都有这个骨盆底肌附着。
So that means that sometimes you could experience a pelvic floor issue as back pain.
这就意味着说，有的情况下，我们可能会是这种骨盆底肌的问题呈现在背痛之上，就是以一个背痛的形式展现出来。
Or pubic bone or pelvic pain.
或者以一个耻骨疼痛啊，或者是骨盆疼痛啊这种形式呢去显现出来。
You could have pain in the SI joints.
也可能会在我们的骶髂关节区域有疼痛。
Or if there's any pain with intercourse, or anytime you put anything inside the vagina.
或者是说在性交过程中，或者是说把任何物品呢去放到阴道之中，你出现疼痛感。
Those all indicate that there is some kind of pelvic floor issue. You should not have pain.
那这些它都指示着啊，或者是说可能指示着我们有一些骨盆底肌的问题了，因为我们是不应该有这些疼痛出现的。
Other kinds of symptoms that could indicate a pelvic floor issue.
那另外一些可能指示着我们骨盆底肌问题的征兆有哪些呢？
Any kind of urination issue, like pain with urination.
任何类型的排尿问题，比如说排尿疼痛。
Now, sometimes that can also indicate an infection or something else.
当然，这个排尿疼痛有的时候可能也会是指示着出现了一些感染啊这种其他的问题。
But if she's been to the doctor and doesn't have any infection, that also could be a pelvic floor issue.
但如果说他已经看过医生了，然后呢没有任何的感染，那这种情况呢就可能是由于骨盆底肌的问题而导致的。
Any kind of hesitancy in urination?
任何类型的尿迟疑。
Sorry, my little dog wants to make an appearance.
I know.
Or incontinence, which means that they can't hold urine in.
或者呢，这种尿失禁的情况，就意味着是说女性有出现这种无法憋住尿的情况出现。
Or if someone is urinating and they're only urinating a very small amount at a time.
或者是说女性呢在排尿，然后她出现这种 每次排尿的量是非常非常少的情况，
or if they're having any changes in the feeling of urination.
或者是任何这种排尿的时候感觉这种尿液啊，或者这种排尿感觉的一些改变。
Remember that the muscles that surround the opening where the urine comes out are impacted, are part of the pelvic floor.
你要知道呢，我们任何这种环绕与我们排尿相关的这些肌肉呢，它都是骨盆底肌的一个部分，或者是说被我们骨盆底肌所影响的一些肌肉。
That's why when those muscles that surround that the urethra where the urine comes out, when those muscles get too weak, then they can't hold the urine in well.
这就是为什么我们在环绕着尿道的这些肌肉啊，出现这种过于薄弱的情况的时候，你就会出现那种排尿的问题，因为它是无法很好的去帮你控制尿流，或者是说憋住尿，说白了。
And the same thing with bowel movements. If the muscles that surround that area are too tight or too loose, you can have problems with bowel movements.
那排大便也是同样的道理的。如果说我们这个区域的肌肉出现过于僵紧，或者是说过于紧张的情况了，过于僵紧的情况了，那你也可能会出现相对应的一些排大便的问题。
So if you're having a bowel movement and it's really thin, like a pencil,
那如果说你大便非常非常的细，就像铅笔一样细的话，
or it takes up a lot of tissue in order to get clean after you have a bowel movement,
或者是说在排过大便之后呢，你需要用很多很多的纸去擦，才能够擦干净这种情况。
or if you feel like you can't empty all the way, like you still feel full in the rectum,
或者呢，你觉得好像大便排不尽的感觉，就好像是说你觉得这种直肠还是有饱胀感的。
those can all be pelvic floor issues.
那这些呢，都可能是骨盆底肌的问题。
Also, sometimes people might experience not being able to hold in gas.
有的时候呢，我们女性可能也会感觉到无法去控制气体这种情况。
Or if they can't figure out how to relax their pelvic floor.
或者是说无法去找到如何去放松他们的骨盆底肌。
Also, there is a pelvic floor issue.
这些情况都可能意味着它出现了一些骨盆底肌的问题。
And then also hemorrhoids.
另外呢，这种痔疮。
And of course, if the organs begin to come down, we call that prolapse. And if there is prolapse, usually that also means there's a pelvic floor issue.
另外，当然了，我们这种器官开始向下这种坠落，或者是说脱垂的情况啊，我们这个叫做器官脱垂，那这也可能是出现了骨盆底肌的问题了。
So let's look at some things that could cause an imbalance in the pelvic floor.
那我们来去看一下哪些行为可能会导致骨盆底肌的失衡。
Unfortunately, a lot of the ways that we create pelvic floor issues have to do with our daily lives and things that we do all the time.
那我们来讨论一下，在日常生活之中的一些行为，或者是说一些我们经常会做的一些行为，对骨盆底肌造成的影响有哪些？
So instead of walking around all day, every day, most people are sitting down at a desk or they're sitting down on the train. There's a lot of sitting that happens now.
那现在呢，大多数群体、大多数人啊，都不会说是一整天都四处走路了。我们大多数都是会在桌边坐着呀，或者是说在火车上坐着呀等等，就是我们大多数时间都是坐着的。
And many times people are sitting in positions that are not really good for their bodies.
很多情况下，我们 采取的坐姿对身体呢，并不是那么的有益处。
Like, for example,
比如说，
when they sit in the chair,
比如说坐在椅
they
子上
might
的时
sit with
候，
their back rounded,
他们可能会这样圆背去做，
or they might sit with like one leg up,
或者呢，他们可能是一条腿向上，就是这种翘二郎腿的形态去坐着。
and then also we do a lot of sitting and using this, the phone.
而且我们在很多情况下也会使用这个物品，也就是我们的电话去坐在那儿。
And when we're using our phone, that means that our back is usually rounded.
当我们去使用电话的时候呢，这就意味着通常情况下，我们这个时候背呀都是一个圆背的形态，
Head is dropped down.
头是落下来的，
And the pelvis is in a posterior tilt.
然后骨盆呢处在一个骨盆后倾的形态。
And when we do that, when we bring the pelvis into that posterior tilt, then the sacrum gets closer to the pubic bone, and that makes the pelvic floor shorter.
而当我们处在一个骨盆后倾形态的时候呢，就会使耻骨与尾骨的距离缩短，那从而会引发骨盆底肌缩短的情况。
And that can also contribute to pelvic floor dysfunction and tightness.
这种情况也可能会导致骨盆底肌的失衡以及骨盆底肌的过于僵紧。
There are also things that we do that we think we're doing really good for our bodies, but actually can be contributing to pelvic floor problems.
有的时候呢，我们去从事一些你觉得可能是对骨盆底肌有益处的行为，反而呢，这些你以为有好处的行为会导致骨盆底肌的一些问题。
Like yoga.
比如说瑜伽练习，
Most of the time, yoga is really, really great for your pelvic floor, but sometimes if you're keeping your pelvic floor too tight while you're doing your practice, it can cause problems.
那大多数情况下，练习瑜伽呢是对骨盆底肌有帮助的，但有的情况下，我们进行某些瑜伽练习的时候，反而会导致骨盆底肌过于僵紧的情况。
Also, doing too much core work, like in Pilates, sometimes you might do too much core work, and that can contribute to a tight pelvic floor.
有的时候呢，过多的核心运动，比如说普拉提的练习啊，反而就这种过度的进行核心练习的行为，反而可能会导致骨盆底肌的一些问题。
Now, I'm not saying that Pilates and yoga are bad for you at all. I'm saying that if you do too much of certain exercises, then that can contribute to pelvic floor.
那我这并不是说瑜伽与普拉提练习呢会导致对骨盆底肌出现问题，我只是说呢，有些类型的或者某种方式的这种瑜伽或普拉提练习呢，可能会引发一些问题，骨盆底肌的问题。
And sometimes it's because of genetics. You may have a genetic predisposition to having more tightness than other people.
那有的时候就可能是这种遗传的，你可能相较于他人来说，你就会让你的骨盆底肌呢是比较出现，就是相较于他人来说更为僵紧这样的情况。
Other things that can contribute to tight pelvic floor are things like ballet dance.
那另外一些可能会导致骨盆底肌过于僵紧的行为呢，可能会有，比如说跳芭蕾舞，
Or if you are doing a lot of tucking of your pelvis.
或者是说你去过度的做很多骨盆内收，或者是说我们骨盆后倾这样的形态。
Also, if you're holding your belly in all of the time, like trying to keep your belly flat as much as you can, and you're holding it too much.
或者呢，有的时候长时间呢去过度的这种憋着肚子，你就比如说想让你的肚子呈现一个非常平坦的状态，你就长时间的这样收着，过力的就是力量过度的去收缩它。
And doing too much abdominal work, like overdoing abdominal work.
以及过度的进行腹部的练习。
Or doing things that are really out of balance, like sometimes sitting with one leg crossed over the other for long periods of time.
或者是长期做一些不平衡的行为，比如说总是盘一边的这种翘二郎腿这种行为。
Or holding a baby on one hip, or holding a backpack on one shoulder.
或者是说总是在一侧呢去抱着宝宝，或者一侧去背包。
Things like injuries can cause pelvic floor issues.
另外一些，比如说伤痛，也可能会导致骨盆底肌的问题。
And so sometimes if someone has fallen and like broken their tailbone, or they've fallen on one hip when they were little, that can lead to a pelvic floor imbalance.
比如说小时候摔跤摔了一个屁股墩儿，然后一侧的这种屁股摔到了，或者是髋关节摔到了，这种情况呢也可能会引发骨盆底肌不平衡的情况。
And what else? If somebody had an episiotomy or a tear during childbirth, that can also cause tightness.
另外，比如说有些女性呢，在分娩的生产的过程之中，出现了这种行为侧切术，或者是说出现了这种会阴撕裂的情况，这样的也可能会引发我们骨盆底肌的一些不平衡。
And sometimes people might have part of the pelvic floor that's too tight and part of the pelvic floor and so that can happen from things like episiotomies where there's some scar tissue.
而有些人群呢，也可能会出现那种部分骨盆底肌过于僵紧，而部分骨盆底肌过于松弛的情况啊。那有的时候，比如说侧切术，就是会阴侧切术，就可能会引发这种部分僵紧、部分松弛的情况。这是因为它这个侧切的位置呢，它形成了一些疤痕组织。
Sometimes pregnancy, carrying a baby for a long time, can contribute to pelvic floor issues.
这个孕期长时间的去承托宝宝，也可能会导致我们骨盆底肌的问题。
And gravity.
Sorry, I didn't get you. You was breaking.
Gravity.
Gravity. OK. 然后呢，就是重力或者说地心引力啊。
So over the years, as we get older, gravity starts to bring the organs down and puts a lot of stress on those muscles.
那地心引力随着时间，随着我们年龄的增长，那地心引力会使我们器官呢，或者我们的骨盆底肌带来一个很严重的影响，会去帮我们这些器官去引领向地面的方向。
That's why I really love it when people continue to do a lot of inversions because it works against gravity.
这就是为什么我很欣赏这种女性做很多倒立练习的行为，因为这种倒立练习呢，是我们对抗地心引力的。
So also, our bathroom habits can create pelvic floor issues.
另外呢，我们一些入厕的习惯也可能会导致骨盆底肌的问题。
This is probably one of the biggest contributors to pelvic floor issues in our common now in this day.
那这个入厕的习惯呢， 它很可能是我们这种日常，就是现代社会之中对骨盆底肌造成影响的一个最大的元凶之一。
So this is really important. If you don't remember anything else from this workshop, I want you to remember this.
那这一点是非常重要的。如果说我们这个工作坊上你什么都没学会，那我希望你也能够记住这一点。
What we do in the bathroom has a big effect on the pelvic floor.
我们在厕所中的行为对骨盆底肌是有极大影响的。
Here are a couple things that you should be aware of.
那以下呢是一些我们应该觉察的，或者是说更应该注意的一些事情啊。
First of all, you never want to go urinate if you don't actually have to.
第一点呢，就是在我们没有到这种不得不尿的情况下，我们是不应该去排。It's a double negative, but I got it. 我们是不应该去排尿的。
We do this with little kids all the time.
我们总是让小孩子这样去做。
Right? You're about to go on a trip and you say, go use the toilet before we leave.
比如说我们开始要去旅行了啊，我们可能会说呢，哎呀，我们出发之前赶紧去上个厕所吧。
And then the kid says, but Mama, I don't have to go.
这时候，然后小孩可能会说，妈妈，但是我没尿啊，不想去。
And then you say, no, you should go anyway because we're going on a long car ride.
但是你可能就会说呢，哎呀，不想尿也去尿，因为我们要长时间的坐车，坐很久。
We don't want to do that. That's actually really bad for the pelvic floor and can create a hyperstimulation of the pelvic floor.
那这种行为呢，是我们要去避免的，因为这种行为呢，可能会导致我们骨盆底肌的过度被刺激的一种状态。
It actually makes you have to urinate more often.
这种行为可能会导致你呢出现这种更为尿频，或者说你更为频繁的去排尿的情况。
Also, we want to spend as little time on the toilet as possible.
另外，我们要尽可能的缩短我们在坐马桶的时间。
So, don't bring your phone into the toilet.
所以说呢，不要带着手机去厕所。
Leave it outside, go to the toilet, get everything done quickly, and then stand up.
那把手机放到厕所外头，到厕所里面快速的解决问题，然后就赶紧从马桶上站起来。
Because the longer you stay on the toilet, the more your pelvic floor muscles are relaxed and gravity is going to continue to work on the pelvic floor muscles.
这是因为呢，你坐在马桶上的时间越长，那你这个肌肉就处在一个无支撑的，而且呢是一个放松的状态。你坐的时间越长，你地心引力就会越多的去作用在你的骨盆底肌之上，让它向我们地面的方向去趋近。
And you want to try not to do any pushing when you're on the toilet if possible.
另外，我们要去可能的话啊，去避免做这种在马桶上去推挤的行为。
As little as possible.
当然是尽可能不要去做。
So actually, squatting is one of the best ways you can go to the bathroom.
实际上呢，蹲姿或者是蹲着是我们排便的最好的形态之一。
Because when you squat, there's a muscle that the puborectalis gets pulled back and it allows everything to empty out.
这是因为当我们处在蹲姿之中的时候啊，我们的耻骨直肠肌呢是会向外牵拉开来的。这种情况下都会允许我们这个一切的事物能够更好的向外倾呼、向外排出。
When you're sitting on a toilet, that doesn't happen as much, and so you have to push more.
而当我们处在一个坐在马桶上形态的时候呢，它就没有 它就不会出现这种肌肉很好向外拉开这种情况，所以我们就需要更用力的去推。
Also, you want to try not to hover above the toilet.
另外，我们也需要去尝试呢，避免就是这种悬空排尿的这种行为。
When you actually sit down on the toilet, the pelvic floor muscles can relax, and then you can urinate without having to push.
这是因为当我们去坐在马桶上的时候，我们的骨盆底肌是放松的。你在放松情况下，就不需要很用力的去推，就可以自然排尿了。
But if you have to hover above the toilet, your muscles are going to stay contracted, and you have to push past those muscles, and that can also contribute to pelvic floor weakness.
但如果说你悬在马桶上，这种形态，那你的骨盆底肌呢，它处在一个收缩的状态之上。那这个时候，在收缩状态中，你去排便的话呢，你可能就需要更多的去进行一个推挤。那这种行为就可能会加剧或者导致我们骨盆底肌薄弱。
So those are some symptoms and some things that we can do to help keep the pelvic floor in balance.
那这些都是一些失衡的征兆，以及我们可以去帮助骨盆底肌平衡的一些行为习惯。
And in my full teacher training, I go through details about exactly how to check your own pelvic floor.
在我的完整的教师培训之中，我会去讲解如何去进行自我骨盆底肌检测。
Exercises that you can do, like pelvic floor exercises that can balance your pelvic floor.
以及我们可以去做的一些能够平衡骨盆底肌的骨盆底肌练习。
But they won't make your pelvic floor too tight.
而这些练习呢，它不会使我们的骨盆底肌过于的僵紧。
So before I end, I want to just show you one of those exercises that can help balance out your pelvic floor.
在我们结束之前呢，我来给大家展示一个我们练习之一就是能够帮助我们平衡骨盆底肌的练习之一。
The nice thing about this exercise is that you can do it if you have a balanced pelvic floor.
关于这个练习，它比较好的地方在于，你可以，如果说你的骨盆底肌处在平衡状态下，你可以去做这个练习。
You can also do it if you have any kind of imbalance in your pelvic floor.
那即使你骨盆底肌出现了任何类型的不平衡，你也可以去做这个练习。
So you can do it if your pelvic floor is too loose or too tight or in perfect balance.
所以说这个练习呢，它适用于我们骨盆底肌过于松弛，或者说骨盆底肌过于僵紧，或者是说你处在一个骨盆底肌平衡状态之上，我们都可以进行这个练习。
So you can do this whether you're pregnant or not.
不管是否怀孕，都可以进行这个骨盆底肌练习。
If you're not pregnant, you can lay down on your back. If you are pregnant, I'm going to show you how to lay down.
如果说你是怀孕的孕妇那你就需要去仰卧，sorry，如果你没有怀孕的话呢，你就可以直接平躺下来。而如果说你是孕妇的话，老师会给你展示一下你如何呢去处在一个仰卧的形态之中。
So, if you are pregnant and doing these, you
怀
can
孕之
set
后
up
去做这个动作，
a bolster and a block.
你可以把一个抱枕呢搭到瑜伽砖上，
And make a little bit of a wedge for yourself.
给自己呢搭一个这种楔形。
If you're not pregnant, you can just lay down on your back with your feet on the ground and your knees up.
没有怀孕的话，就直接平躺屈膝，脚踩地就可以了。
So from here, we're just going to lay down.
在这里我们仰卧下来，
And all you're going to do is have your hands on your belly.
我们需要做的就是呢，手去放到腹部之上。
As you inhale, you're going to feel your hands lifting up.
在吸气过程中去感受双手上提。
As you exhale, the hands come down.
随着呼气，双手向下。
And you're just going to do this for a few breaths and just try to bring the breath really low into your belly.
做几轮这样的呼吸方式，尝试呢把呼吸带入到我们肚子腹部的位置，非常深入的位置。
And then bring your hands all the way down so that your fingers are touching your pubic bone.
你的手的位置呢非常的低，手指呢几乎能够碰触到耻骨。
And bring the breath all the way down to that area. So you breathe right into your hands.
将呼吸一直向下带到这个区域之上，带入到我们手的位置之中。
And feel the area underneath your hands expanding, just like a balloon blowing up with every breath.
随着每次呼吸呢，去感受我们手下方是一个气球被充气充起来了。
And then if it's comfortable, you can put your hands underneath your sit bones.
如果舒适的话，你可以把双手放到坐骨的下方。
And then inhale all the way down into your sit bones and feel the sit bones beginning to move out to the sides a little bit as you inhale.
在吸气的过程之中呢，将呼吸完全的向下带入到我们的坐骨位置，随吸气去感受的坐骨可以向外微微的打开一些。
And you just do this for a few breaths. We're just trying to get the pelvic floor to lengthen.
进行几轮这样的练习，我们在这里呢去尝试着拉长骨盆底肌。
I know it seems like when you're doing pelvic floor exercises, you want to just contract those muscles, but they have to be able to lengthen all the way in order to be able to efficiently contract.
我知道呢，听起来好像当我们做骨盆底肌练习的时候，我们需要去做一些收缩的练习。但是你要知道，我们如果不去拉长骨盆底肌的话，你是没有能力呢很好的去收缩骨盆底肌的。
Now, from this position, I want you to imagine that there's a big flower, that your pelvic floor is like a big flower.
在这个形态之中呢，去想象我们的骨盆底肌就像一朵大花一样。
And as you inhale, I want you to imagine the petals of the flower opening up.
随着我们吸气，你去想象我们这种花的花瓣儿都向外打开，绽放开来。
As you exhale, the flower is relaxing, the petals are relaxing.
随着呼气，花朵与花瓣呢都适当的都去放松。
As you inhale, you can feel the flower opening up all the way, stretching the petals out.
随着吸气，去感受我们的花瓣向外伸展开来、绽放开来，完全向外打开。
And then this time, as you exhale, I want you to imagine the flower is closing and you're going to lift the flower up toward your navel.
下一次呼气的时候，去想象将这些花瓣闭合起来，并且将这朵花呢去向上提向我们肚脐的方向。
So you're inhaling, the petals are opening up and the petals are stretching out.
所以我们吸气，花瓣绽放开来，花瓣向外伸展。
As you exhale, the petals are closing and you're lifting them up, the flower up toward your navel.
随着呼气，花瓣闭合，并且将这朵花去向上提向肚脐的方向。
So if we think about the pelvic floor being down here and the flower.
现在你去想象我们的骨盆底在这个位置，这朵花。
So the flower is open.
花瓣在打开。
And the pelvic floor is opening up.
我们的骨盆底肌在打开来，向外。
And then you're going to close the flower as you exhale and lift the pelvic floor up toward the navel.
随着呼气的花瓣闭合，骨盆底肌向内收，并且呢向上提起。
So moving with your breath, inhale, the petals
所
open.
以说，带着呼吸去练习，吸气，花瓣绽放开来，打开。
Exhale, the petals close and you lift up.
呼气，花瓣闭合，上提。
And that's just a basic pelvic floor exercise that everyone can do that can help balance out your pelvic floor.
那这个练习呢，就是一个非常基础的练习，而且是任何群体都可以进行的练习。它可以帮助我们平衡骨盆底肌。
It can help with a pelvic floor that's too tight or too loose.
它可以帮助我们呢，去缓解这种骨盆底肌过于僵紧或者过于松弛的问题啊。就是说，不管你是骨盆底肌僵紧还是过于松弛，它都是对你有所帮助的。
Or even if you have a pelvic floor that has a little bit of part of it that's too loose and part of it that's too tight.
即使你的骨盆底肌是部分松弛、部分僵紧，它也是对我们有所帮助的，对你有所帮助的。
All right.
好
So
了，
now I want to take some questions.
那现在我来去回答一些问题。
There were some questions I got ahead of time. And then
Yeah.
if anyone else has questions, I can take them.
那之前呢，有一些同学在提前问了问题啊，然后如果说大家还有其他问题的话，我们也可以去进行解答。
So let's take the first question that I have here.
第一个问题，
Does postpartum sacral pain have anything to do with pelvic floor muscles?
第一个问题是产后的骶骨疼痛跟骨盆底肌有关系吗？
Postpartum sacral pain can have to do with pelvic floor muscles, yes.
那产后骶骨疼痛呢，它可能与骨盆底肌有关系。
But it's not always because of pelvic floor muscles. It could also be from other ligaments that are attached to the sacrum or different muscles that are also attached to the sacrum.
但它并不一定就是说我们骨盆底肌的问题啊，它可能是说与我们骶骨相连的一些韧带，或者是与骶骨相连的一些其他的肌肉群。
So it kind of depends on where the pain is.
所以说这要取决于你的疼痛到底在哪个位置。
Like if they're having sacral pain and it's also going down the leg, that could be from some.
Said I said I didn't get that part. You said
Yeah.
the pain, okay.
If
From the
if you have pain that is at the sacral area, but it's also going down your leg like a nerve pain, then that could also be a pelvic floor issue. Or sorry, then that could be another muscle.
那 OK。 那老师说呢，如果说你这个疼痛呢是在我们骶骨的区域，然后它可能会出现了一些像神经性的，或者是说沿着我们双腿后侧的一些疼痛，这种痛感啊，它可能是由于一些其他的肌肉而导致的。
And so there are so many muscles surrounding the pelvis that sometimes pelvic floor issues can cause sacral pain, and other times it can be something else.
因为在我们骨盆周围呢是有很多很多肌肉的，所以说这个骶骨疼痛有的情况下可能是由于骨盆底肌而导致的，但有的时候呢可能是由于其他的情况而导致的。
Okay. All right, next question.
好，下面一个问题。
Cesarean scar. Do you want to?
Yeah.
Do you have that question in front of you?
I do. For a C-section, if she has the constitution that very easy to get scar, is there any way or better way to help to recover?
Okay. Do you want to say that to everyone
Sure.
else?
第二个问题呢，就是说他问老师，如果是产妇剖宫产是疤痕体质的话，有什么更好的方法可以帮助恢复吗？
So we all have different genetically, we have different ways that our bodies repair injuries.
那我们所有人呢，从这个遗传角度来说，我们这种损伤啊，或者一些伤痛修复的方式，肯定都是有区别的。
So when you have an injury like a cut or something, where like a cut, like a cesarean scar or any kind of cut on your body is going to create scar tissue to heal it.
那我们身上有任何的伤口啊，就像我们这个剖宫产的刀口，或者说任何类型的这种伤口的时候，我们身体为了去修复、去闭合它、去愈合它，都会形成这种疤痕组织。
Now, the percentages of like collagen and other other things that make up scar tissue are different in different people.
那我们导致我们身体我们形成疤痕组织的这些成分呢，它每个人每个个体之间都是有区别的。
That's why when one person, when two people get the same kind of cut, one of them might look much different than the other because of how their scar tissue heals the area.
那这就是为什么那两个人他们可能是说身体都是一样的，这个伤口都是一样的，但可能两者的体质原因呢，导致它这个疤痕或者修复起来就是区别很大。
People who tend to get really thick scars, they're going to have a little bit harder time with the cesarean scar than someone who tends to get really thin scars.
那这种疤痕比较厚的这种个体啊，它相对那种它结疤的时候疤痕比较薄的这种个体，那当然你恢复起来，在产后剖宫产这个刀口修复起来，它肯定是更困难。
So some of it's genetic, and some of it also is the skill of the surgeon and how well they repair the incision.
那有的时候呢，这个取决于我们这天生的这种遗传，另外呢，也取决于我们这个手术师的技术，就是他当时缝合或者是切以及缝合的时候技术怎么样。
But luckily, after you have a baby, you still have the hormone relaxin in your body, which is going to aid in helping to heal the scar.
但幸运的是呢，在我们产后，身体中依然有这个激素，叫做松弛素。这个松弛素它可以帮助我们去修复这个疤痕。
This hormone relaxin goes into all the connective tissue in the body and it lubricates it. It makes it a little bit more mobile.
这个激素松弛素啊，它会作用在我们身体的所有的关节以及结缔组织之上，它会去润滑这些结构，让这些结构呢会更润滑一些、松弛一些。
So after someone has a cesarean and they're totally healed, after they've gotten clearance from their doctor that the incision is healed, they can begin to do some scar tissue massage.
当产后呢，这个医生复查之后，确定就是这些刀口啊都已经复原了、愈合了之后，他就可以开始做一些这个疤痕组织的按摩。
And because the body has relaxin in it,
而正是因为我们身体中这个时候还有松弛素，
when we do scar tissue massage after it's healed, it will help the scar tissue become less dense.
正是因为这种松弛素呢，我们在刀口这个疤痕愈合之后进行疤痕组织按摩的时候，这个松弛素会去辅助我们的结缔组织去避免出现伤疤过于这种厚实的情况。
I can't explain all about scar tissue massage here, but I do have it in my teacher training. There's a section on showing exactly how to do it.
那这里我就没有办法过于详细的讲解如何进行这个结缔组织的按摩了啊，但是在我的培训课程里面呢，是有一个章节很详细的讲解如何去按摩我们的结缔组织，按摩我们的疤痕组织的。
And I highly recommend doing it because a lot of times what happens is that scar tissue can travel down and create adhesions into like the organs underneath.
Sorry, could you say that again?
Yeah, do you remember adhesions? Like it's when scar tissue kind of like goes into other places and it causes like the inability for the areas to move. One second. Adhesions.
Yeah, like the
so like when after you have a scar, here I'll say it differently. After you have a scar,
在我们有这个伤疤之后啊
that scar tissue gets really thick in order to protect that area to make sure it's not going to come apart again.
那我们的这个结缔组织呢，疤痕组织就会变得很厚实。这个厚实呢，它是会预防我们这个区呢再次的裂开来。
But sometimes the scar tissue will start to travel away from the scar, either out or down toward the organs.
那有的时候呢，这个结缔组织呢，可能会它从这个部位游离开来，可能会趋向我们器官的位置。Yeah, I remembered.
Okay. And so it makes it so that that those areas don't have the kind of movement that they need to have, and you end up getting pain in different areas.
那么这种粘连的情况啊 ，Yeah, I remember. 这种粘连的情况呢，就可能会使我们的这个区域啊，没有办法像其他部位那样那么好的去在两者之间进行一个滑动或者是活动。
So scar tissue massage is really good for this.
所以说，我们的疤痕组织的按摩，是对我们这种粘连有很好的缓解作用的。
I have much more to say about this, but I can't say it all right now. So let's move to the next one.
那我们现在没有办法去完全的讲解这个话题了啊，我们到下一个问题。
Okay, the next one is how to find the location of the PSIS.
下一个问题呢是卡后上体的位置怎么找呢？
So this is actually pretty easy. You can do it on yourself.
这个挺简单的，你自己可以去做。
Or you can do it with somebody else if you want to do it on somebody else.
如果你想去给他人进行找这个的卡后上体的话，你也可以在他人身上去做。
You first of all find your hip bones.
首先找到你的髋骨的位置。
So right where your waist is, if you push your hands in, you'll find the top of your hips.
手放到这个位置上啊，手放进来，找到我们骨盆最顶端的位置。
And you can either follow your hips around until you find two like prominent points.
你可以沿着这个骨性结构一直摸啊，去摸到我们找到两个非常突出的位置。
Or if you look at somebody's back and they have two dimples on their that's actually where the PSIS is.
或者呢，如果说你看我们这个女性的腰部，它出现两个腰窝，那个腰窝的位置，但实际上就是我们卡后上体的位置。
So one way you can do it is your hands on your hips and your thumbs come down.
这个方式，手放到髋关节上，然后大拇指向下。
Follow your thumbs down until you find two bony points.
去让你的大拇指沿着这个骨骼向下，直到你找到两个非常非常突出的点。
And what you're feeling are these two bony points right here.
你感受到，你摸到就是我们这两个非常突
which
出的位
is
置。
your posterior iliac spine.
这个就是我们产后上肢。
All right, next question.
好，下面一个问题。
Rectus abdominis separation.
Saying the the 1 month after the labor, the 月子 there is the separation during that month.
And then also the postpartum pelvic floor exercise.
And also how long can you start? How long after birth you can start the practice, the pelvic floor practice?
Okay, so I'll talk about the pelvic floor first, when you can start exercises.
好，首先我们来讲解产后多久可以进行骨盆底肌练习。
Right away.
首先就这个问题，这个答案呢就是马上就可以练了。
So you can start doing really gentle pelvic floor exercises the first day. You'll do them laying down though, not standing up or in a squat.
我们会在产后第一天，你就可以开始做一些仰卧形态的非常轻柔的骨盆底肌练习了啊，而不是去做站姿的或者是一些蹲姿的骨盆底肌练习啊，仰卧的。
And right after you have a baby, those muscles are going to be pretty weak, so it's okay for you not to be able to connect with them right away. You just gently begin to start trying.
在我们产后这个阶段呢，你的肌肉是非常薄弱的。你可能无法去马上就对这些肌肉有所感知啊，所以这也没关系，你只是去尝试去做就可以了。
All right. And then the abdominal separation. Again, this is one that would take a really long time to explain, but I will give you a very short answer.
那这个产后骨盆底的腹直肌分离啊，这个是要很长时间去讲解的。我们这里呢，给大家一个非常简短的答案，快速的解释。
So it's very normal for you to have some separation of the abdominal muscles after you have a baby.
在产后出现一些腹直肌分离的情况是非常常见的。
If you are not doing things that's going to make that separation worse, a lot of times the separation will come together on its own in the first few months.
如果说在产后呢，你没有从事任何会导致这个腹直肌分离加剧的这种行为的话，很多情况下这个腹直肌分离加剧的行为的话，很多情况下呢，我们产后腹直肌分离会在产后的几个月之内自行的恢复。
So we want to avoid really overstretching that area, like doing big back bends.
所以说我们要去避免很大程度上拉长这个区域的动作，比如说一个很大的后弯。
We want to avoid doing really intense twisting.
也要去避免做这种强度的扭转。
And we want to avoid doing a lot of rectus abdominis work, like crunches.
也要去避免做这种很过度的重复性的腹部练习，比如说卷腹的动作。
And that will, and then there are exercises that you can do that include the transverse and the obliques, the transverse abdominals and the oblique abdominals to help get those muscles back together.
当然，我们有一些腹部练习呢，是可以涉及到我们的腹横肌、腹斜肌，从而去帮助我们使腹直肌分离的情况有所缓解。
But it takes time.
但是你要知道呢，这是需要时间的。
So you can't expect that you can heal that separation in a day or even a week.
所以说，你不能奢望着我们可以在一天或者是一周之内就去修复这个腹直肌分离。
Because what we're trying to do actually is to, let me pull up a picture really quickly and show you.
我给大家来一张图片啊，给大家展示一下。
等一下。 So what we're trying to do is actually make the muscle, the connective tissue right here in between the muscles. We want to make that stronger.
那我们所需要做的是呢，让这两侧腹直肌之间的这个结缔组织更为强壮。
And that is that takes time. It's like building up a muscle at the gym. You can't do it, go to the gym one time and get strong. It takes going many times.
那这就像是说，我们不能奢望着你去一次健身房，你就能够练成这种大块头。你要多次的进行练习，才可以呢，去慢慢的让你的肌肉去建立起来。
So we want to try to make the connective tissue very strong so that it holds those muscles together long term.
所以说，我们需要呢，使这个结缔组织变得非常的强壮，能够长久性的去支撑这些腹直肌，让它不要过分分离。
You can do some things to push the muscles back together, and they will come back together for a short period of time, but the connective tissue won't be strong enough to hold them there.
你可以去做一些这种外力啊，把你这个肌肉呢，两侧腹直肌向内推回来。那这种外力它可以使你的腹直肌内收，就是在短时间的有这个效果。但是你要知道，你的结缔组织不够强壮，它没有能力呢去维持在你腹直肌向内收的这样一个状态上，所以它是一个短效的。
And if you do have a separation, then it can also impact the pelvic floor and make it weaker.
而且如果你确实有腹直肌分离的话，它可能也会对你的骨盆底肌有所影响，使骨盆底肌呢更为薄弱。
Okay.
好吧。
Do you want to look at some of the questions in the chat and see if there are any?
Sure. 1 second. Okay. So from the first one, okay. First one, what to do? What should I do if there's a tilt of the pelvis? Like, I don't know what it meant. Like tilt.
A tilt of the
pelvis. Side to side, like one side higher.
Like one
lower.
hip is higher.
When the other one is lower. Yeah.
Yeah. So it depends on what's going on in the rest of the body. You have to kind of look at the body as a system and not like each part individually.
那这个骨盆有歪斜怎么办啊？这个你要，不能把我们这个身体呢，就是分成一块一块的去看待。你要把我们身体看为一个整体、一个体系去看待。
So sometimes when you see a pelvis that's not balanced, if you look up higher and look at the shoulders, you'll also notice the shoulders are out of balance.
那有的时候呢，你如果出现骨盆一些不平衡的话，那你向上看到肩膀的位置，你可能会发现肩膀也出现了一些不平衡。
So we need to look at the posture, and if there's something in their posture that is creating imbalance first.
所以首先我们需要去评估他的这个身体的体态，看看他体态之中呢是否有一些不平衡。
And try to work on balancing up at the top and then working down.
你可以去尝试呢，由上到下的去进行平衡。
And then if we find that the top is balanced and we get down to the pelvis and we still see that there is an imbalance, there's probably something muscularly going on that is creating an imbalance.
那如果说你肩膀的位置已经平衡了，然后再往下看骨盆还是不平衡的话，这就可能意味着是我们一些肌肉的结构、肌肉的组织出现了不平衡。
So we can fix it usually with balancing postures in yoga, doing things that are going to lengthen the muscles that attach to the pelvis.
那我们这种情况呢，就可以去做一些，比如说瑜伽里面的一些练习，去拉长附着在这个部位的一些肌肉。
But a lot of times what we see is there's something that they're doing in their life that's creating an imbalance.
那有的时候我们可能会看到呢，他在日常生活之中是否会从事一些行为而导致了不平衡。
So we look at their daily life and see in their daily life, are they doing things like sitting with one leg up or doing things that are possibly creating that imbalance?
所以看到日常生活之中呢，是否有这种坐下来啊，比如说总是一侧翘二郎腿啊，或者是说其他的一些不良的、不平衡的行为习惯。
All right, what's next?
Okay. After remove the uterus for 2 months, can I start to practice?
After you
Remove
what?
the uterus.
Oh, remove the uterus.
Remove the uterus, yeah.
After
can
2
I start
months.
to do? Yeah, 2 months after removing the uterus, can I start to go back to my practice?
Usually, yes. You need to make sure you're cleared by the doctor first before you do any practice, and then ask them.
这同学问，子宫切除手术2个月后可以恢复练习吗？老师说，通常情况下是可以的啊，但你要确保呢，在你恢复到任何练习之前，都需要去问医生啊，医生许可了之后才可以进行练习。
I would start with a gentle practice and mostly working on upper body. And then after 3 months, usually after surgery, you can go back to more of your practice.
那我呢，可能会是循序渐进的，慢慢的去开始，然后通常在我们这个手术3个月之后，你就可以慢慢的去加入到你练习的比较大的一些部分，大多数的练习方式啊。
And I would include doing pelvic floor exercises, but with your hips slightly elevated.
我也会呢去把骨盆底肌练习加入到你的瑜伽练习之中，但是你可以呢把骨盆微微的垫高一点点。
So like using a blanket.
比如说用一个毛毯。
To elevate the hips a little bit.
去微微的把骨盆垫高。
And doing pelvic floor exercises with the hips slightly elevated.
把骨盆微微的垫高，去做这个骨盆底肌练习。
That way you don't have any weight of the organs on the pelvic floor, and you can fully engage it without having any resistance.
那这样的方式呢，你可以避免你骨盆底肌这个位置有任何的重量向下去作用，然后你可以去通过这样的方式进行一些无压力的或者是无阻力的骨盆底肌练习。
And I would also explore physical therapist for sure.
我也会去去找一个骨盆底肌的物理康复师。
In fact, any of the symptoms that I've talked about during the whole workshop, if you have any of those, it's a really good idea to see a pelvic floor therapist and get your pelvic floor assessed.
那如果说你有任何我在整个课程上讲解的任何症状的话啊，如果说你有这种症状，你都应该最好去找一个骨盆底肌的这种康复师，去这种物理康复师或者物理治疗师去做一下评估。
Right.
Okay.
Other questions?
Next question will be, I have a student during the 1 month after labor got hemorrhage.
How many?
1 month, like
Sorry.
during the month.
1 month after, okay.
Yeah, during the month got hemorrhage. So what's why, and is there any way to make it help with that?
Yeah. Very, very common after you have a baby to have hemorrhoids.
这个遇到一个月子期间有产妇有痔疮，什么情况有什么办法缓解啊？老师说呢，在产后出现有痔疮的情况是非常非常常见的。
There are some herbs that you can get that you can put on that area that will help with the swelling.
那 你可以呢找一些这种有中草药啊，把中草药去放在这个位置上，它是可以缓解这个肿胀的。
Be really careful not to get constipated. So if you're ever feeling constipated, making sure that you are drinking enough water and not staying on the toilet very long.
要确保呢，避免出现这种便秘的情况。就是如果你万一出现便秘了，就要多喝水，然后避免呢长时间的去坐在马桶上。
They usually will go away after, a couple of months.
通常情况下，这个痔疮呢，在2个月或者几个月之后就会自行的消退了。
Or a couple of weeks.
或者是几周之后就进行消退了。
If they don't go away, then you might want to therapist about them.
那如果说这个痔疮痔疮没有消退的话呢，你可能会想要去找一个这个骨盆底肌的物理康复师。
Everybody has hemorrhoids. They are actually part of the body. They just get swollen and they push out when they're. Do you understand?
所有人呢其实都是有痔疮的啊，只是说在有些情况下，这些痔疮呢可能会去出现肿胀以及向外突出的情况。
So there are certain herbs that you can use and like sitz baths that you can use that will help the swelling.
那有一些
the pain.
有一些草药我们是可以用的，或者是说坐浴啊是可以用的。这种草药浴呢，可以帮助我们缓解肿胀以及疼痛。
And then making sure that you're not sitting on the toilet too long.
而且要确保你没有长时间的坐在马桶上。
All right, next question. I think we have time for one more.
For one more. Okay, we have 4 questions. So, okay, I will read 4 of them, and then you choose one to answer. Okay. Okay. What's the impact on pelvis floor when you have the imbalanced pelvis? And then second one, can you do cat call when you have a separation when the 1 month after labor? And will there be compression on the belly?
Okay.
And then I
can answer those 2 really quick. Oh, you need to.
Okay. No. Saying there's another 2. I'm reading.
Okay.
I have to go to the bathroom each hour, once an hour. If I don't go to the bathroom, I will feel really uncomfortable. My stomach will feel really uncomfortable. Is this because of my, I have problems in my pelvis floor? Okay. The last one. I feel like my pubic bone is really, really high. What is the reason for this? And when I was pregnant, I feel really bad pubic pain too.
Okay. Let me talk about the pelvic floor one first. The one, do you want to read that one? The having to go to the bathroom every hour?
这个问题啊，我每一个小时呢就要上一次厕所，不上的话就会肚子不舒服。这种尿频的行为是不是骨盆底肌的问题？
Okay. Sometimes your body gets into a habit, and if you stop doing that habit, your body gets uncomfortable.
那有的时候呢，我们的身体会形成某一种习惯，而当你去打破这个习惯的时候，身体就会出现不适，可能会出现不适。
If you're urinating every hour and not that much is coming out, then that you're probably going too much, and you should try to wait a little bit.
如果说你每个小时都要去一次厕所，然后每次排尿的量也很少的话，那这可能就是你形成了这种 过于尿频的情况了，那你可能需要稍微的等一下，就不要那么频繁的去上厕所。
But if you're drinking a lot of water and you're having enough urine coming, like more than 10 seconds of urinating when you do go, then then you probably need to go.
那如果说你喝水喝的很多，而且呢，你每次上厕所的这个尿呢是比较多的，然后每次排尿的时间啊，能至少达到10秒钟的话，那就说明这是正常的，你可能就是需要去上厕所了。
Okay. All right. And then did Yogamala just write about more questions they can ask?
Oh. No.
Okay. So really quickly, cat-cow. You
快速的讲
can
解
do
这个猫牛
cat-cow
式。
with a separation. It's just a really good idea to make sure you're engaging your transverse abdominals when you do it. And and you might need to use some kind of a soft bind to help with that, to get the muscles closer.
产后月子期间有腹直肌分离，可以做猫牛式吗？腹部有压迫吗？那这个你是可以去做猫牛式，但你要确保在做猫牛式的时候呢，确保到你腹横肌的一个起重，而且你也可以选择用一些非常非常轻柔的腹带啊，就是在做这个体式的时候用这个轻柔腹带，帮助你预防腹直肌分离加剧的情况。
If the connective tissue is really thin and they're feeling a lot of weight on that area, then they might want to start with other exercises first and then move to cat-cow once they have a better tone.
如果说它结缔组织这个位置啊，就是两侧腹直肌之间结缔组织上非常非常薄弱，然后这个位置呢总是感受到很有压迫感的话，重量很沉的话，它可能需要呢先做一些其他的动作，而不要去做这个猫牛式，先做其他的动作，让这个区域呢处在一个更协调的状态的时候，才去做猫牛式。
All right. I know I might not have gotten to all of your questions, but feel free to reach out to me on WeChat. And I really hope to see some of you or some of you taking the teacher training.
那我没有办法再去回答更多的问题了。那我希望呢，当然你们可以在微信上联系我啊，然后我也很希望能够在我的教师培训课程中去看到大家。
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Belle.
好了，感谢大家，感谢，Thank you, Jennifer。